Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second season of the CAYACast. It's the first ever proper official episode of season 2 of the CAYACast, and we're so excited to be back talking to really dope people doing really cool stuff in the creative industry. And we're so excited to share more of our creative industry with you because we love it, and it's cool to share this stuff. Joining us for this episode is Bianca Rasmussen, who is a model, events director, creative entrepreneur. And one thing that we've always used to start episodes off with, and I want to keep it going, is what do you feel people don't encapsulate when they're introducing you in this kind of a sense? And they're like, Bianca is X, Y, Z. Like, what is the missing thing that is like the essence of Bianca that people don't capture in an intro?
I think I'm like chaotically imperfect, and I love that. Like I don't ever strive for perfection. Everything's a little bit chaotic, and you see it in my art, you see it in my work, and I really love that about myself.
That was a really good answer. Sometimes we used to get like there's a spectrum of answers to that question. That was very good.
Yeah, I feel like we can get into that a bit later because like while I'm not striving for perfection, I really find it difficult to let go of it. So like I need tips. Yeah.
It's a hard one.
Yeah. So I mean, it is a fairly good segue into some of your work. And I kind of want to like touch on different aspects of your experience in the creative industry as a professional performer in different ways.
Let's do it.
But I think something that a lot of people will know you from is the Lovin series.
Yes.
And so I think let's start there.
Let's do it.
It's a good, segue from your intro, and then we can get more into the meat of things. But
brilliant.
For people who know Lovin, maybe they know the brand, but they don't know you as much, although they must have not been watching anything, to be honest. They must really barely know the brand. Or don't really understand where it came from. Tell us a little bit, give us the Cliff Notes version on Lovin so we can then go into the details.
Oh my gosh, let's do it. So the Lovin series for me is just that. It's like chaotically imperfect, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a little bit of everything with regards to art and creativity. How I like to describe it is it's like two main aspects of artistic creation, and the one is creating space for performers, designers, artists to come together and collaborate, maybe in spaces that they've never collaborated before, or actually just creating space for them to speak out, to talk about their work, because some artists didn't sign up for that. They didn't sign up to be social media managers, and so they're phenomenal artists, but they need a space to show their work. So that's one half of the Lovin series that I absolutely love. You see it in the events that we do. It's a lot of what we put on the page. And then the kind of other aspect of it is life coaching. And that's called Navigating Normal, I like to call it. And that is a lot to do with body positivity and inclusivity in our modeling world, in our design world, in our arts world. It also has to do with kind of getting to know yourself, because you can't love yourself until you know yourself. So that's a very hard thing for especially creators, because we are creating these big things about a lot of feelings. But it's important that we also go back to understanding those feelings and what they mean for us in our daily lives. And so it's kind of those two things, but it's also so much more than that. And I hope it continues to grow absolutely chaotically. And yeah, that's pretty much the Lovin series in a nutshell.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so how did it go from sort of being like this idea in your head, something that you wanted to bring to people, to actually being a real, thing, business, company? Yeah.
I've always been super excited about producing and directing. It's what I went to kind of college for. It's what I studied. And I think what that did is it put me in a box of like creating theater and creating plays, straight plays specifically. And I felt very stifled in that environment creatively. I felt like there's so many other artistic styles that I absolutely adore. There's so many other mediums that would make this something so special. And I'd love to kind of bring them all into a room together. How do I do that? What does that look like? And I mean, it's still very much growing, but it started from a place of just frustration, of being like creatively stifled and being like, surely there is more to this. And I've always loved helping people. I am a certified life coach, so there was that aspect of wanting to sit down and connect with creatives. And it just started. It was just started with conversations going like, what do you feel about the creative industry? What do you look for in the creative industry? What would you like to do? Who would you like to collaborate with? Okay, cool. Why don't we just do that? Like, why don't we just create it? Why don't we just make the page? Why don't we just start it and do it and go? And that's pretty much the birth of the Body Lovin series. Yeah.
So the first event was in?
The first event was our launch event February 2nd last year. Yes.
And that then was, subsequently, how many you've just had?
We did a Women's Month event in August last year. We did a yoga workshop, I can't even tell you, September, around that time. And then we did another runway show in December last year, which is so cool. So yeah, it's the most recent one.
I mean, they've looked incredible. I mean, I've actually told you this, but obviously we haven't been able to be there, much to my chagrin. It is the worst thing about doing our own things. Is so often other people do cool shit, and it's like, I really want to go there. Like, I really want to be doing this as well, but like, I also, but it really seems like it has really taken off as a space where there really are, especially like looking from the first one to the second one, so many different creatives, so many different people from so many different creative disciplines that really have just bought into this very collaborative adventure. And I think one thing that's always been a personal pet peeve I've had with the Cape Town creative industry is that there's this like very much everyone's like, yeah, I'd love to collaborate more, like totally.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Or this is the classic thing of the like slightly more seasoned creative. As soon as people come to you with that, and you're like, oh, I kind of know what you mean by that. And I think that's led to a lot of and to some degree there's valid reasoning to it, but it's also counterproductive where people are a lot of talk about these kind of things and collaboratively sharing to grow one another's problem. But when it comes to the action, that's a lot more, it's a lot harder to find.
Yeah.
How have you felt navigating, really pulling together all of these different creatives from different disciplines, from different industries, environments, and pulling them together to put on something that does, despite the diversity, I think, on the runway, behind the scenes, whatever, there's this very unified energy that comes through, I think, even if you're not at the event. I'd love to hear about what that process was like and what you found worked and what didn't.
Yeah, totally. It's, I think, for me, the most important part of the Body Lovin series is that it feels like a community. I never want you to walk into a space and feel isolated, like you can't talk to anyone, like you can't make friends. I think we have a problem in the city, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that we don't feel like we can reach out and connect with one another. Like there's no follow through with those connections, and it makes finding friends really, really difficult. And I think there are people that really want that. And so if you create that feeling of connectiveness and that feeling of collaboration, it's so tangible for anyone that comes into the space. You start speaking to people you've never spoken to before. Same thing with the collaborators. You start speaking to a designer that you probably never ever would have reached out to, and then you go, hey, I'd love to model for you again, and then they keep you in mind. And it's a very cool process that I think for me, working with people from a million different creative mediums has been very interesting to bring them together, but also very refreshing because I had an expectation that no one would want to talk to each other and no one would want to collaborate. It was like, I was like, oh geez, I'm literally going to fight uphill this whole time. People really want to collaborate. People really want to make something happen. And especially in art, in the art world. And so genuinely, I wish it was a more complicated answer, but it was like, hey, would you be keen to be a part of this? Yeah, totes. And it was really as simple as that.
Did
and
what
then
they were supposed
everyone,
to. Crazy.
yeah, and then everyone did that. And listen, yes, there's absolutely like headaches and a million people talking to you at a million different times and people pulling out last minute, and you're like, it's so chaotic. But then everyone gets into the same room and you look at each other and you go, you're an artist, you're a dancer, you're a model, you're an influencer, you're a designer. And we all look at each other and we go, what do we love? Okay, cool. We love art. We love art. We love expression. We all feel that purpose and we all share that together in the space. And then you kind of just want to help each other. You want to reach out a hand.
It's that feeling of being a part of something bigger and
absolutely
that you believe in, that you can really lean into.
I think that's what made it easy, is that people felt that and they felt the passion behind everyone that joined, and they went, okay, cool, this isn't an ego thing, this is not about me, this is something I want to be a part of. And then it really was simple from that point on. I
think people underestimate the value of having people who feel like they're a part of your community and really get I think feel like they're a part of it and get some value out of being a part of it. I think that's
absolutely
a really important thing, as a creative entrepreneur to be leaning into. Do you have?
I feel like maybe I'm being like negative Nancy here, but I've sort of become a bit pessimistic towards people's intentions and whether they will have that follow through, because like it is really easy to find a lot of people that are enthusiastic about something, but I think it's like sort of the red flags when we hear collaboration. It's like, I'll be there for the glory, but like, not everything along the way. But I think if you do manage to find a space with people that are all willing to like give, I think then that's when something like really magical can happen. But I think I'm just like a bit cautious.
No, and like rightly so. There are definitely people along the way that I've met, that I've had the conversation with. They've arrived and they've had that same feeling. I'm here for the glory and I'm here for nothing else. And what's great is having a cast of 60 people. Hopefully 50 of them aren't there for the glory. What's lovely about that scenario, and it's not every scenario, but what's lovely about that scenario is they band together. They really do have your back, and they are really there for you, and they want to help you in any way that they can. And it makes the person that's on the outside feel a little bit like
they're all of a sudden like, oh, I'm not cool for like not being involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not cool to not get involved. I mean, I don't think it's cool to not get involved.
There, man. Like, get stuck in.
I was also wondering, do you feel like your community is like swayed more towards like women, or like do you feel like there's men that are interested in participating? Like from what I've just seen on social media, it looks like there's more maybe like femme bodies, but because as far as I understand it, it's not specifically like for women or anything like that. And I think if you are able to create this space where people are coming together, it would be so nice like at some point to like bridge that with all types of people.
Absolutely.
So I was just like wondering, like, how do you feel like those dynamics have happened within the group?
Absolutely. I think what I love about the space is I love to take critique every time. So what happened with the first show is obviously I am a femme body, so I kind of naturally reach out to that audience online, and they naturally reach out to me with regards to a lot of the content that I post because I resonate with it. So I hit the microphone. I post about it because I resonate with it, and so they are connected with that content. And what happened at the first show is it's always volunteer based. So people always apply to be a model. You kind of randomly selected by the designers. It's very little to do with me and like getting involved and kind of being a part of that. And so what happened was the critique was we would like to see more male bodies in the next show. And we want to see older women specifically in the next show. And what was great about that is then I knew for the next one, the outreach was then, hey, we would love to see more of this. Please participate. Please send in an audition form. Like, please want to be a part of this. And I hope that continues as much as possible. We want to see, I want to see everyone in the show. The point of the show is to see the world represented on the runway. And I want to try and resemble that as best as I can. And so it has to do with people participating and auditioning and being like, this is a space for absolutely everyone. You are welcome here with all capacity, but like you are always welcome here. And yeah, that's always the intention. I hope that more people feel safe enough to reach out and be a part of it. And I think they will. It'll just grow. It'll happen naturally and slowly, which is exciting. Yeah.
Did you ever follow up? Or I've got another one. Wonderful.
No, but can I quickly just...
Yes.
I also have so many yawns. Like, if my nostrils flare, just don't even laugh at me. Like, because I'm like, why am I like, just oxygen to the brain.
Yeah.
In terms of working with local brands, and we work with, we've had a bunch of different local designers that have come through the cafe, and I think the one thing we've run into as a common thing, and maybe part of it is we haven't had that many designers that have catered to mask bodies as well. We've definitely had more designers that cater to femme bodies, but is with like the size ranges that particularly like really small designers have, you know, and sometimes like we're getting the whole collection, like everything, you know, and it's like 2S, 2M, 2L. And literally. Like I get on one hand the like the very logistical practicalities of like, listen, I'm gonna make 10 of these things, but it's always been a barrier, and it's something that, you know, I mean, like even me when it's men's clothing, like I'm not an L, and I'm not like that big either. Like, so how do we, I don't know, I guess, you know, like on one hand is encourage, but on the other hand support local designers in being able to have a broader range, because ultimately that's what it comes down to, just like in terms of volume, and especially when you're starting out, that can be hard. But like, have you, I mean, you've obviously worked with a bunch of local designers and some of them smaller designers. From there, you know, from interacting with them, what have you seen as ways of dealing with that? Because obviously it needs to be dealt with.
Absolutely, yeah. I think after having conversations with designers who maybe didn't cater to as large a sizing range as I would have liked to be a part of the show, it was always a conversation of why do you not do that? Like, what, just genuinely why? And it is a thing of demand. So they always say, hey, if more people bought the larger sizings, we would cater more to the larger sizing. And I think what's sad is that we kind of let me think about it actually before I get into that, but like I think there's such a consumeristic pull to like big chain brands, and that's just like for anybody. That's, I think we look at buying local as kind of like a treat, like a surprise thing that we do every now and again to like treat ourselves to something local, you know what I mean? And I think it is frustrating because then their demand isn't high enough. And that's why I think people go on and on about please support local, and we don't mean, hey, just buy a shirt, like, you know, and then go to Cotton On and buy 40. Like, really do support local, and not all of them are super expensive. They are incredibly like accessible local brands that you can support, and the more you support, the more demand there is for larger sizing. And it's also a thing of asking. Like I asked a brand that didn't have my size, hey, why don't you have my size? Are you looking to get my size? Because that's something that can happen in your future, please. Like, and then they'll either be like, no, and then you're like, cool.
Fuck you guys.
Yeah, bye. But like otherwise, or they'll be like, you know what? Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to look at getting larger sizing. As we grow, it's going to grow into that. It's possible for every brand. Demand is also necessary for every brand. I understand that. And that's why when there is larger sizing, support them a lot.
Yeah.
As much as you possibly can. Obviously, the economy is hard. We can't be buying a lot of stuff all the time. But like when you can, support local as much as you possibly can, because that demand will then grow. And that's necessary for them.
And I think there's really something to be said for just like in general, that thing of just asking.
Yeah.
Because then even if they don't, like if you don't ask, they don't know the demand's there.
Exactly.
Whereas like if you're a small business and you're like printing on demand and you've got a certain size range because your budget's sweet bugger all, that's understandable. But if 10 people ask that small business, hey, do you have this? That's like material value that they see, because they're like, okay, these are qualified leads. These are people that want my shit. They've gone out of their way to ask for it. And it's the whole thing of like, that's why we see so much more plant-based eating options. It's just because people asked. When they weren't there, people asked. Yeah. And then businesses respond to that. So, you don't even, have to buy it to support and increase demand. It's just like asking. And then, like where these things do exist, definitely support them.
Yeah, as much as you possibly can. Because then
this
they
is South
become
Africa.
popular.
We're a nation of pretty big people. Like,
I was about to
everything.
say,
Like-
how often do you go into a shop and everything that's left on the rail is like extra small and small?
Yeah.
Like, so the demand thing, I do understand, but I think that businesses would be surprised if they didn't think of it as like I'll reach a point where I can add it on, and they started by having
with an M, L, and XL instead of S, M, and L.
Yeah, do you know what I
Truly.
mean? And also, I mean, like sizing is a complicated thing, because like every brand has like different sizings of what's gonna fit. Like it's crazy, and it's also very confusing for buyers. But that's like a whole nother thing.
Absolutely.
But just like sometimes I feel like when your L is a small L, because that's like a thing. Like I don't know, just do a bit better.
Absolutely. And also when these very inclusive brands start becoming more and more popular, you start to realize, oh wow, there is actually demand, and there's huge demand in this country for larger sizing.
Exactly.
It's like it's there. It's not like it's not there. You just have to be brave enough to go, okay, I'm just going to create something, and B, you have to really push for it. You have to be okay with showcasing larger women, men on your website and on your Instagrams, that people see what it looks like, so that they go, oh, okay, like that t-shirt is going to fit me like that. Great.
Yes.
I'm going to buy it. Yeah, that's important.
And I also totally agree about the price thing. I used to, like, everyone's prices have inflated, but like that's the same for chain stores. Like,
absolutely.
Like your bigger, like mass produced stores are also cuck expensive now, and it's one of the reasons why like I'll actually pay a lot more even for like a thrifted item, because I'm just like, back you for doing what you're doing, and for a locally made item. But I'll walk into Cotton On, I just like don't even do it anymore, because I'm like, why would I put my money in here? But there are also like affordable local brands. You just have to be like thrifty with what you're looking for, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, a big part of it is also local brands just have, significantly different cost structures to these bigger brands.
Something did just like pop in my head though. How many of them like have a different cost structure, but how many of them are also like I have a minimalist style and now I'm going to be like super edgy and expensive and exclusive and like only 5 people in Cape Town will buy my clothes, but it's fine because they're going to go to Blondie's every Friday and everyone will see it.
Well, I mean, and that was something I was kind of like getting to is, you know, like that's a legitimate clothing brand building
strategy.
Like, and it's very effective.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's very, very good. And like, I think that is, and this can, I want to kind of chat about creative entrepreneurship and the context of the country that we live in. And like, we've also found there's this very interesting relationship, I think probably especially in Cape Town as opposed to wider South Africa, but this like, I mean, we obviously live in the most unequal country in the world, and so there's this, you know, on one hand there's a massive movement towards more inclusivity and getting more people involved and more people having seats at the table and all of that, which obviously is the right thing to be happening, but you do have a lot of business value in a sense of exclusivity or in a sense of, you know, inobtainability. And brands, I think particularly in the fashion space, that's the game they're playing, is we want to be the brand that not everyone's wearing, but when people see it, they're like, holy shit, wow, that person's got that thing. And so, you know, in the streetwear culture, it's like, and it's happened to streetwear cultures around the world, and you know, where streetwear is inaccessible to the people that used to wear it.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it's now this like high, and at the same time, there's brands that come from that culture that have grown, and it's like fantastic to see that they're being valued like that. And so it's like, well, that's amazing. But now, you know, like there's this disconnect with a market or, you know, and I think it's something that we've always talked about, you know, like trying to have value-led businesses and trying to, you know, make a positive impact. But there's these things that we always say, like capitalism doesn't align well with like being people-centric.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think particularly in creative business and in small business in South Africa, that's all the more true. How have you found... that process of starting to engage with, you know, building the business, and, you know, the business needs to make money, and but it's also collaborative, and there's also everyone's coming in and getting involved, and there's a lot of value to people giving to something they're not being paid for, but also, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
How have you found that journey? Because it's hella complicated.
It's so complicated, and it's also, no, please help me.
Please help us.
Please help us. No, it's complicated, and it's also like very difficult. No one's going to ever say that that's easy. Nor am I there. Like, nor am I there where I can pay my rent with what I make from the Body Lovin series. No, like that doesn't happen. One day, hopefully, yes. But like, I'm not there. And I think it's I always love to say, my mom always says to me, like, it takes 25 years to build you as a person. You like become a person, and then your next 25 years is you like establishing yourself. So you have 25 years to kind of just mess around and figure it out. And in a brand sense, I like to kind of think of it the same way. You have like a year to actually, however long you want, to just play around a little bit and figure it out. Because I think my biggest pet peeve is people sitting on an idea and not doing anything with it until they just think it's perfect, and then they start, because then it never happens. I would much rather people just put it out there and then mess around with it for as long as you can. And obviously it's not going to make you money, unfortunately, but you're going to get really good content from it. You're going to get really good traction from it, and you're going to make really great connections with people from that. And that, for me, was my first year at the Body Lovin series. Only now am I starting to have the conversation of like, okay, cool, funders, sponsors, like getting collaborations with people that might put money into the business, paying the dancers and the models, and like moving into that space where we can support the creatives that are in the brand, because that is vitally important to me. I think that's my biggest frustration with the runway shows, with any event that I've done, is any unpaid event that I've done, is like, just feel terrible for not paying creatives, because they are giving their hard-earned time to be here, and it's unpaid. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm so appreciative of it. And it's necessary to build something that's meaningful, that they're a part of. But it's tough, and it's like sad. It's so sad. But it's also important to play around and be creative and make those connections first. And then you start talking the big numbers and you go, okay, cool. What does funding look like? Let's write a business plan. Let's sit down. Like, let's make some proposals. Let's put them out into big pockets, and let's try and create something that's a little bit more like with a little bit more longevity for everyone involved. But it's hard.
Yeah.
And I still haven't figured it out. I'm still on that journey of trying to figure out how to be an entrepreneur, a creative entrepreneur.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think any creative entrepreneur, no matter how old they are, would ever go, oh, no, there comes a point, don't worry, where you just, it's all sorted. You know everything and you're fine.
What?
Oh, no.
I was waiting.
Sure. I think if you were waiting a good 50 years.
Yeah.
There were a couple of things in what you said there that I think were really interesting. I want to pull out. The first being, I saw a TikTok of a podcast of someone else who was, I think, talking about someone else who'd said this, given this analogy.
A quote within a quote.
Yeah, I know. It runs deep. And the analogy, and it spoke perfectly to what you were saying about like people sitting on an idea, was they did this study where they separated like a college group into two and told the one group, you have the whole semester and you have to make us one perfect pot at the end of the semester. And they told the other group, we're going to grade your pot at the end of the semester, make as many as you can. And obviously, and we can all see where this is going, but the group that just made pots and just made thousands of pots ended up at the end of the semester with way, way more pots. All of them were way better than the group's one perfect pot.
Yeah.
They'd gotten cheaper, way more efficient. They were faster. It was a better quality product. Like, you know, in every way was better because they weren't trying to be perfect. They were trying to chaotically be imperfect a lot of times.
Yes.
You know, and just eventually, and that's how you get there. And I think, you know, when it's talking about creative businesses as well, it's, you know, it's understanding that, that creative chaotic imperfection and just progressing on that is how you get to a point where, like you said, the business has really got a bit more longevity and you've got a proven product and structure and you understand it. And I think that's the thing that creatives going into business, it's like being a creative professional or creative business person, like you've got to spend as much time focusing on the business person and the business side of it as being the creative. And for so many creatives, that's the hard part.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it's not what we like
are trained to do.
Want to do.
Exactly,
And I think it is why it's so hard for people to, you know, bring, and it's I think there's a fundamental like disconnect or contradiction in so many aspects of creative business, and it's so hard to find that balance.
I mean, like, I'm pretty sure scientifically, as if I'm a scientist, like that it's hard to like activate both sides of your brain like equally all the time, so that you're like dividing your attention properly to both. Like, I do a lot of like admin stuff, and I'm like lucky that I can like concentrate and like focus on like the businessy stuff that's not all creative. But I find it really hard to switch back into being creative, which is also not great.
But I think that's common for most people, and I think particularly for creative professionals. And I think it speaks to the value of bringing people around you who fill those gaps, and you know, still aligned with vision, but don't have nearly the same skill set.
Yeah.
And you know, that for me is the fundamental premise and value behind these like more collaborative things. Is like you're actually just finding people that might be. And you go, oh, I really liked working with you, and you really like, you know, it took some shit off my plate. The other thing you mentioned that I wanted to chat about was, you know, people get content out of these things and all of that. Content's played a big part in the promotion, the story, the hype around Body Lovin series, and it's also how you extend the series beyond the events and into the life coaching. How's that journey been for you? Talking about creators don't always want to be social media managers and content creators and editors.
Here we are.
Oh my goodness. I hate content creation. I really do. And actually,
everyone does.
I really
no
do.
One, I don't think.
I really don't like it. It's honestly like pulling teeth to get myself to sit down and make posts. And I love what I do. I love the Body Lovin series. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm so passionate about the work that I do, but it is tough to do that. And what you were saying, to jump back onto what you were saying about passion and, were you saying something about passion? I don't know. Something about it. But what I was saying is the brain, these two sides of the brain is I think when you are so passionate about something that you do, there's always going to be things you hate about it. There's always going to be things that are like, oh my gosh, I'd rather pull out my teeth than even begin to start this process. And there's always going to be a lot of that in anything that you do. But if there's a fraction of real purpose and passion behind it, it will always outweigh the bads for me. That is so important. It's cool, I hate content creation. Sitting making business plans, rather die. I don't want to do that all day, every day. Sitting, talking to people, cold calling, cold emailing, cold DMs, suck. Soul destroying. Getting a million no's sucks. It really does. There are aspects that suck. And then you really touch into the part that makes you smile, that makes you feel like you can breathe deeply. And you go, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. It makes sense why I have to sit and do all of this now. And I think media managing is hard for me. I really struggle with it, but I try to continually remind myself that this makes me breathe deeply. This makes me feel alive. And that's more important than this. And that's what gets me through it. If you asked for a tip and a trick, it's just the constant reminder that I love what I do. I love the other bit so much. Let's make this post.
We recently did a content creation. What was it called?
It was the workshop session with
the Groove and Grind. Yeah.
It's with the Playroom on content creation for creatives. And I feel most of the people that were there for the class were uncomfortable with creating content and promoting themselves as a brand, or found some sort of discomfort in it. And one of the things that we found that have really helped us, and it was one of the things we shared with them, is if you're just being you, and we've gone a little bit further with it, but we call it
our content strategy is unhinged personality.
Oh, beautiful.
But we are
absolutely.
a bit crazy anyway.
Yeah.
It starts to make it easier, and it starts to become easier to see yourself out there. Yeah, it's the whole you'll never be perfect.
Yeah.
It'll never be perfect. Just throw it at the wall and see what sticks.
Absolutely. I think with the Body Lovin series, it's the first brand that I've ever kind of created that is just my baby, my passion, my force. And that's hard when it comes to content creation, because you're oh my gosh, it's gotta be perfect. It means everything to me. And that's when it becomes really difficult. But what gets me through that is it's just you. You're allowed it for it to be just you. You love it because it's just you, not just me, but it's authentically me.
Yeah.
And that's why I love it. So I try.
Yeah. No, I mean it's it's one of those things that's so much easier said than done. Incomprehensibly so. And it is it's imperative that we all do it in the different ways that we do in today's day and age. And it's unavoidable And I think, it's not, and it's definitely not uncommon for people to really hate it, like Gina was saying. Like, I don't think anyone enjoys it. I mean, I kind of feel like I've stopped disliking the process, but I mean, like, there's aspects of posting, as you would very well know, because Gina runs all of our socials and clients.
Literally
and
get like a headache. Also, just because like I don't find comfort in scheduling platforms that can't stay up to date with all the features. And so I'm quite a manual worker. Like, I wouldn't take my own advice, but I'm like there posting things like in real time. Like I get a headache every day.
Yeah, you wear your screen reader
Yeah.
glasses. But the other flip side of it is I think it gets better with practice.
Yeah.
The more you do it,
100%.
the more you like, I have to do this. And on what you were saying about, it being it's your baby and it has to be. I think that's the hardest thing to get over. And I think it's like why for so many creative professionals, any aspect of self-promotion feels like that, because you don't believe it's perfect and you're your harshest critic. And it's so hard to try and sell something you don't believe is perfect. Every other product category in the world is easier to sell than like your personal creative product, because it can't be perfect. You will never think it is, and you won't promote it until it is. And it's like this complete contradiction of things that are all internal. And I think that's also, again, like people need to figure out who their people are and their teams, and figure out how to first delegate some aspects of that being a creative professional. Like, my whole thing to people is like, try and find the shit, like just find the shit you hate the most. They're like really soul destroying stuff, and try and figure out a way to delegate that to someone who's good at it, because like what it frees up for you energetically and personally and from a fulfillment level is huge. And people used to ask us, like, how do you like, do you get fulfillment from this? And I'm like, boy, if I didn't. Like,
oh boy,
if this wasn't really fulfilling me, let me tell you, and but a big part of how I've been able to enjoy that more and feel that more is as we've slowly brought people onto the team that we can trust and start to delegate the things that aren't as efficient use of our time, because it just is something that as a creative professional you've got to start to be doing and working with people that and I think again with like with that, and in the creative industry, employing people is harder than it is in other industries as well, because your personality match has got to be so much more than if you're working in just like a corporate office setting, and there's not really a lot of personality happening. Whereas in what we do, it's everything. And I think people just need to start, I guess, embracing that. Like, I think the other thing that with the content thing has made things easier for me is just realizing, like, got it. Like, things aren't perfect, but things are pretty good, and this is still really valuable, and trying to let go of that thing of it being perfect. I think the advantage being that there's a lot of good social media evidence behind brand accounts building in public and that doing really well, and you can be really honest about your failures, and it seems the algorithm likes that.
So true.
Thank God for that.
Thank God. Absolutely. I think that's why I love it. Like, I love the phrase like chaotically imperfect, and I want it to always continue to be that, because that's authentic. That's my voice. That's the people involved. It's never going to be perfect. I'm not waiting for it to be perfect. I mean, I still have like a blue piece of text on my website that I've fought with for many weeks. Like, I have fought with that blue text, and it will
see if
not.
You can find the blue
no,
text.
Please don't buy the blue text. Don't buy the blue text on the website.
I'm not gonna lie, my brain went, I have to go and find this now.
Oh my gosh, it's like, but like, if I was waiting to fix the blue text, I would never have had a website. Like, I would rather put it out there with that frustrating blue text that I can't change, and then try and figure it out along the way. And then also document it, share that. Like, I'm not ashamed of it being imperfect. The runway shows will never be perfect. Even if I have the biggest sponsors and the most epic venue in the New York Fashion Show worthy, like it's never going to be perfect. I never want it to be. It's chaos.
Perfect,
is
like
beautiful.
doesn't like have any like soul to it. Not that like.
Yeah, I think. I mean,
it's
and
a difficult
it's
thing to
something
describe.
that
No,
has really
it's
been helpful for me over the last few months, particularly, and like over the last few years, with working at and our business live events and working at various events and seeing that the biggest stages in the country, the most experienced professional crews, whatever, like they also fuck up.
Absolutely,
and
all the time.
And like it feels like this massive thing when it's you and like we've got some, like we said, we've got shows 20-30 people and something, and I've definitely gotten better at like shit happens and I'm a lot more confident with it. But I think when it's really starting out, is like everyone they make these fuck ups all the way up.
Oh yeah.
Like this is when it's chilled.
Yeah.
Like enjoy it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
I think,
whereas
I think it also makes you a great person to work with.
Yeah.
Because people aren't afraid to mess up around you.
Yes.
And that's great because that's how you learn. Like I would much rather my choreographer for the show come to me and show me an absolute piece of garbage and go, I hate it.
Yeah.
And me go, that's fine. Like, you know what? It's fine. Fix it. Don't fix it. Do something with it. It's your brain. It's your baby. Like it's better than having someone being there going like, oh my gosh, it's got to be perfect. It's put so much unnecessary pressure on creatives that just want to create, want to create art that makes you feel. That's all we want to do. And so like when you put expectation on creatives that just want to create art that makes you feel, it makes art that makes you makes you not feel. and then it's not even worth making in the first place. Well, maybe it is, but like it makes you a great person to work with, I think. I found.
I agree. I think that's a really good point, and people need to consider it.
What is our status on time?
I am.
Okay. Because I was going to start something new, but I feel like.
What was it?
I mean, it was just like. Now, am I speaking for the camera or am I just telling you guys about the idea?
Briefing, go.
You said you went to like a theater type school. Like I've always wondered in those institutions, like I studied art at school. It's just like, can creativity ever like really live in like that kind of environment?
Okay, well, that's a kind of good segue into what aligns with what I kind of wanted to start wrapping up with, the proper wrap up question that we can go into depth in. And it was around like generational differences, and it does feel like there's a new generation of creatives and creative entrepreneurs in Cape Town and in South Africa, but I just know Cape Town a lot better. And I guess it goes to your experience as well in, creative educational institutions. And I've got lots of friends who also went to various, creative education institutions. And in some of them, it seems like the education wasn't very creative, to be honest.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like, well, I'm this older lecturer, do as I, and I know that in industry, sometimes it's like that as well. I know a lot of the people I've worked with as well, it's not like that at all. But I am still really excited about this new generation of creative entrepreneurs that are coming up, because there's a lot of us doing cool shit.
So exciting.
It's really cool.
It's so cool.
Yeah, I wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
It's so cool. Like I honestly think this generation of creatives is I just love it. I love it so much. I love what everyone's doing. It's taking, in the instance of fashion shows, it's taking something like New York Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week, and it's going, why don't we just like shake it up a bit? Like, why don't we just like put a million mediums into one room and see what happens? Like, I'm excited by that. I'm excited by our creatives going, you know just like create something new, shake it up? Why don't we just put something in a random church and like make it super immersive and see what happens? Like I love that. I love messing around kind of creativity, going like, let's just trial and error. And I think that with going to a creative institution, you learn some, you lose some. Like you take a bit, you lose a bit, and you go, that works for me, that doesn't work for me. I think that's what worked the best for me going through something like that. I'm like, great, I'm going to take all of this knowledge that you have. Absolutely, it's wise knowledge. You've learned something from it. It's something you've learned along the way. I'm going to go, thank you so much for that. This is what I'm going to keep, and this is what I'm not going to keep. And I think there are definitely people that are like, great, I'm going to create something exactly like you created it. And that's fine for them if it is working for them. But you know what? It didn't work for me. I needed to shake it up. I needed to try new things. I needed to incorporate other art forms. Like it, and I will never, ever, ever regret going to the institution that I went to. I think it was incredibly helpful. I learned so much going there. I have the friends that I love and care for to this day from that institution. And I learned, again, so much. But I am not taking all of it. And that's okay. Do you need it to be a creative in this industry? Absolutely not. You don't need it. But is it helpful in some aspects? Absolutely it is. And that's what I have to say about that.
The wisdom, the life coaching side of it's all coming out, these wise words.
That's what I want. You do that pull-up quote right at the end so people watch the episode all the way.
Do you know what's also, valuable is like, I've realized a lot recently is like finding mentor type people or just people with experience and things that they can share with you that you feel like you can connect with can often be like tenfold more useful than studying. And obviously, like you said, there's benefits to studying at an institution, but like that's very much not a possibility for a lot of people. And so it's about like connecting with people that have like learned along the way or learned from other places. And there's a way. Think creatively about it.
Always. There's always someone that knows. There's always someone that knows something that you don't know, and that's glorious. Like imagine I did a runway show and I decided to choreograph those dances. It would it would be very chaotic. It would be terrible. But instead, I went, hey, look at this awesome creative. Why don't you come on board? Because that's what you love to do. That's your passion. That's your purpose. And they created something absolutely sensational. And then I learned from her. I go, okay, cool. Now I know what that looks like and what I want in that regard. You learn from collaboration. Well, I've learned a lot from collaboration for sure.
Yeah.
It's
immense amounts. Sure. To wrap things up, another relatively traditional segment in the spirit of this podcast and this conversation, what you do and everything. We always like to give you an opportunity to shout some shit out. Other like brands, people, like just
shout
people
some shit out.
doing
Your frustration.
Literally, this is an open floor. Oh wait, before we do that, Nick, you hear me? Do you have a question? Unmute your mic.
I don't know.
I did really throw you in on the
That's okay.
on the
This is
spot.
also Nick's first podcast.
Yes. Okay, well, everyone say hi to Nick. Nick in the edit.
Nick.
There we go.
But we will start a segment of next question.
Yes, we need to think
that's a
about
good
that.
idea.
That's going to be much better.
Okay, well, you continue.
Yes, please continue with your shout out.
My shout outs. I'm going to shout out the brands that I've worked with just because I think they're fantastic, inclusive, wonderful brands. And if I forget one, I'm so dearly sorry. But my favorite one at the moment is Style Rotate. Incredible brand. They are super inclusive, and obviously their whole theme is ethics, like renting clothing, not consumerism is a no. That's like their whole thing, and they're fantastic. Like their clothing is absolutely sensational. The team is sensational. Like they are wonderful human beings. So Style Rotate is a big one. Next one is Hubba Hubba, which is an underwear brand, but a plus size underwear brand that makes incredible cotton underwear that's amazing. Another one, Good Clothing, Hannah Lavery, kind of sit same boat. 2 local brands that are inclusive, ethical, and just so worth looking at. Hooked by Eye is a student or a new designer that kind of joined on for our last show. She makes crochet clothing that is fab to order. She makes everything by hand. It's insane. Blizzard and Breeze is one that was in our last show. For the Fringe also makes everything by hand. Such a good brand. Yeah, and I think that is everyone. If I forgot someone,
shout out if you did.
So
if
yeah,
you didn't, we'll if we find out afterwards, we'll put a little subtitle.
Yeah, but those are the amazing brands I've worked with, and they are absolutely amazing. Also, the Outlaw Base, Kim and Liam, working with them in their venue. They are fab. Tamsin Dexter, who is my choreographer. Jessie Lyons, who is my creative director. She was absolutely sensational. Hire her. If you need a producer, a creative director, she's sensational. Yeah, and those are my people, and I love them all. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your insight and wisdom with us. I've really enjoyed it. So
thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. I love your work, and I'm big fan.
Thank you.
The feelings obviously mutual.
Thank you guys so much for watching the first episode of season 2 of the CAYACast. Very, very exciting stuff. We have a new set and Alice. It's great. Subscribe, because there's a lot more coming. Where totally cocked up that sentence, but it's all right. Lots more where this came from. That's what I meant to say. Like, subscribe, all the things, and comment any cool people that we should investigate for a podcast episode, because then maybe if we have them on, it'll be because of you, and that'll be cool. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Silent.
Wonderful.
Silent